Welcome back to the brand new Takeout, episode 2. I want to bring in the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Ken Martin, who, joins me remotely from Salt Lake City. No disrespect to Salt Lake City, Mr. Chairman, but you're always welcome here on the set. I want to ask you something, not about today, but about when you were the Democratic chairman in Minnesota in 2011. At that time, as I've read, the state party was deeply in debt. It had just lost the state Senate for the first time in 40 years, lost the state House, and a very prominent congressional seat. Everything was collapsing. And then 2012 was a bounce back year for the state Democratic Party. Do you feel you are living through that cycle again?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, when I came in as chair in 2010, as you mentioned, we had just come off the worst election loss in 50 years for the Minnesota DFL. The morale was low. Donors were fleeing. All of our stakeholders were pissed off and angry about how we actually rebuild. And what it took at that time is for me to actually write a plan, a long-term 10-year plan, to give people a sense not only how we would win in that next upcoming election year, but how we would actually win the future as well. And that's critical because we're in a similar boat right now where the morale is low, where people are frustrated after losing a race that many thought we were sure to win, of course, and the record amount of money spent on our side. It has left people scratching their heads, wondering how do we get out of the wilderness and get ourselves back into power, both in 26, 28, and beyond. And I'm doing the same exact thing, right? Which is building a long-term plan, a 10-year plan. Now, Major, one of the things I have to use is a hockey analogy because I'm from Minnesota. And Wayne Gretzky said once that you have to skate to where the puck will be, not where the puck is. And that's what our party has to start doing. That's why I ran for DNC chair, to actually put us on a long-term path to be a majority party, not just win one cycle, but to win each cycle thereafter. And that's what we're doing right now. We're building for the future.
I want to get your impressions about something that may illustrate the starkness of the challenge ahead of you. There's a recent story in the New York Times by a reporter I admire, Shane Goldmacher. I used to work with him at the National Journal. And it talks about a woman named Annette Schenker Osorio, who is a Democratic researcher. And she's conducted 250 focus groups. And what she does is she tries to ask those people in focus groups to label the Republican and the Democratic Party through animals. And this is what it found. Republicans are seen as, quote, apex predators, like lions, tigers, and sharks, beasts that take what they want when they want it. Democrats are typically tagged as tortoises, slugs, or sloths, slow, plodding, passive. How do you digest that?
Well, look, I mean, I've seen similar research, and I'm reminded of something that someone said to me after the 2016 election cycle. They said the Republicans are shameless, but the Democrats are spineless. And what people want to see right now is a Democratic Party actually grow a spine, stand up, and fight like hell for the things they believe in. Actually, an old mentor of mine, Paul Wellstone, who I got my start with, used to say that if you're not willing to fight like hell for the things you believe in, do you really believe in them at all? And that's part of the challenge right now. I mean, last year, there was research that was done that should have been the canary in the coal mine, Major, that showed for the first time ever in modern history that the perceptions of the two political parties has actually changed. The majority of Americans now believe that the Republican Party best represents the interests of the middle class, the working class, and the poor, and the Democratic Party is the party of the wealthy and the elite. We have to do a better job of standing up and fighting like hell for the things we believe in and giving people a sense, especially working people in this country, that we're going to fight for them, their families, and their communities.
That's why you're in Utah right now, isn't it?
Well, look, I mean, Utah is one of the youngest states in the country. It's one of the fastest growing states in the country. It's going to gain a congressional seat after the 2030 census. There's no doubt that this is an emerging target for the Democratic Party and that we can win here. When I ran for the DNC position, I said, we need to get the DNC out of DC. Someone said, well, what do you mean you're going to move the headquarters out of DC? No, it's changing the mindset that if we're going to be a national party, we can't just be a party focused on 7 battlegrounds battleground states and a handful of congressional seats. We can't just be a party focused on building federal power. We have to be a party that's focused holistically, building power up and down the ballot, from school board races to state legislative races to governor's races, all the way up to the White House. We need to be a party that's competing at every level and in every state, including red states like Utah. Again, we will meet that moment in terms of winning the future once we start expanding the map and realizing that there are opportunities throughout this country if we're willing to take advantage of them.
Now, Mr. Chairman, you know as well as I do, most Americans are not paying close attention to the ongoing stranglehold or conversation that's going on within your party, within the Democratic National Committee itself, about two vice chairs. David Hogg is one of them. Why should he no longer be a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee? And isn't that symptomatic of a kind of internal strife that you have to resolve one way or the other before you can go on to do all these other ambitious things?
Well, look, I don't know who's suggesting that he shouldn't be a vice chair of the DNC. We need David's voice. We need Malcolm's voice. We need young people in our party. It's really critical that we make sure that we have their energy, their voices, their leadership in the DNC. I think it's important part of democracy that we have primaries. It's an important part of holding candidates and elected officials accountable. All those pieces, I agree with David Hogg on. But the one thing that I've been a longtime proponent of, and I ran on a whole reform package when I ran for DNC chair to democratize the DNC, is the idea that party leaders, party bosses should not be putting on their thumbs on the scale and actually picking winners or losers. They should stay out and let primary voters, with no interference from party leaders, make those decisions, and then we fight like hell for whoever the nominee is. You know, in 2016, right after that election, I was the author of the superdelegate reform, and I brought the first neutrality pledge to our party because, again, I believe it's important that the supporters of candidates feel like they have a voice in this process and that they weren't pushed aside by some party boss who's trying to make that decision for them. So this is not a newfound belief for me. I believe party officers and party leaders should stay out and let primary voters make those decisions. And so this was not a reaction to David Hogg or to anyone else for that matter, Major. This is something I campaigned on long before David Hogg was ever in the race and long before David Hogg was ever in politics. This is a position that I've supported and pushed through the Democratic National Party.
Ken, you talked at the top about fighting like hell. Michael Whatley, the Republican National Committee chairman, was on the set here yesterday and said 80% of the country supports the Trump tax bill. He was referring to extending the 2017 tax cuts, but even if that's an exaggeration, one of Trump's top pollsters, Tony Fabrizio, has numbers showing that about 65 to high 50s support almost every component part of this bill, including work requirements for Medicaid. Are you going to fight like hell against all those things, even though Trump's pollster has numbers saying that they have majority support in our country?
Well, Major, you know this. You've been in this business for a long time, and everyone's got a poll to show their own point. And so I'm not going to believe Trump's pollsters. We see numbers just the opposite. There's great buyer's remorse in this country right now with what Donald Trump and his administration are doing to this country already. In just 4 short months, they've completely destroyed the fabric of what's made this country great for so many years. But let me speak specifically to this bill that they're pushing forward right now. As the son of a teen mom who had me when she was 15 years old, who raised 4 kids by herself, by the time she was 20, she struggled mightily. And if it wasn't for programs like Medicaid, I wouldn't have had health care. If it wasn't programs like SNAP, I wouldn't have had food benefits. And so it is the height of callousness and depravity to actually put forward a budget bill as this that would actually take food away from starving children, that would actually force seniors out of nursing homes, that would actually take health care away from the handicapped and the disabled. For what? To give a tax break to those who already have the most amongst us, to the richest billionaires in our country? You're damn right we're going to fight like hell. This is an immoral, document. We are better than this as a country. We know we need a social safety net to protect the most vulnerable in our communities. And Trump and his minions, all they could care about is those who already have the most in our communities. And I can tell you what, they're going to pay a deep, deep price at the polls next year. Much like in 2017 when they came after the ACA and the American voters sent them a message, the same thing's coming. So guess what, Donald Trump? Guess what, Michael Whatley? Keep going down this road. Keep believing your polls, and we're going to keep working hard to make sure that you're out of a job next November.
DNC Chair Ken Martin coming to us from Salt Lake City. Mr. Chairman, you're always welcome here at the Conversation Corner at the Takeout. Thanks so much.